So we are back into the brood nest. Last week we had stripped off all the honey boxes from this yard. So we're just following up this weekend just to see what's going on down here. Just to do a food assessment, to see how much pollen's on hand, to see how that nest is developing itself out, and to provide a little bit of stimulation. So we have some patties with us here. And basically what we're doing is we're just going through really quickly, determining whether or not this the hive is viable. And we're giving them some supplement just to kind of jolt that nest with a little bit of protein to help develop that winter nest. And we're doing just a random survey of disease. So it's a very important round. I'd like to get this done mid-August. It's kind of hard because we're so busy pulling honey, but we can't do it while we're pulling honey, so we have to do it, around the edges. Extremely hard to find time. So we have to be able to do this round, which is extremely important. We have to be able to get through the hives extremely quickly. We don't want to spend a lot of time figuring out what's going on. So we employ a few strategies just to help us with our workload. For one thing, what we're trying to assess for food stores and pollen and just where these colonies are at. And basically, if you check one colony or 2 colonies or 6 colonies out of that yard of 40, that's basically where that yard's at. That's basically where those bees are at in that yard. So we don't have to go down and inspect every single one of these colonies. We just need to do a brief survey throughout the yard just to kind of figure out the feel of what's going on. So that's really important in managing your workload, is just getting a grasp of where that yard is and what's going on. And then you're not wasting time pulling frames and assessing absolutely everything when you don't have to. The other thing that I'm doing is we're going through, and we're not looking for eggs. We're just looking for any type of physical resemblance of a cluster going on, like the brood nest, the active brood nest. Hefting to see if there's any weight in there. There is, so they have a little bit of nectar on hand. We pry off the queen excluder, and Carrie's got my smoker over there, so I don't have a smoker right here, but we smoke down the bees, and basically what we're looking for is any type of brood. If you see brood, it's up here down here. I see cap brood right across the top of the frames here. So that's all I'm looking for. So I'm assuming, because I'm seeing brood, active brood in this nest, and I'm seeing lots of bees and honey up top in that box. I'm seeing honey around the corners. I'm assuming that this colony is active and viable. I give them a little bit of protein just to, we're just trying to stimulate and jolt the nest with a little bit of supplement. Excluder back on top. And on to the next colony. So by not physically examining that brood nest, I might be missing some problems. I might be missing drone layers. I might be missing like a queen replacement that has just gone wrong. Maybe they swarmed and they're not requeening themselves. So I might be missing some of those issues. And if there is problems that fall or has fallen upon this colony, we will find them the next time around. The other thing that we have to put a lot of attention to is Varroa mite. It's a tough time of year to be able to identify hives that maybe have a bit of infection, so we have to actively dig down into the brood nest and do a sampling to see whereabouts our mite populations are at. And right now is the time when this fall treatment is the most effective. Right at the time when these bees are developing this winter nest, we want to be able to control those mites so they can build this healthy, mite-free winter brood nest. So what we do is we have to actively get down into the brood nest to be able to determine what type of population is going on. So this colony second box is nice and heavy. So as we go through, I just smoke them down. I take my assessment here. I'm seeing brood right across. So this colony, to me, seems like it's an active, viable colony that I invest some time and money into. So what I want to do is I want to do a mite sample now. What I use is a tub, a little half-cup scoop, and whatever Varroa mite shaker that you think is adequate. Oh, and what a beautiful nest this is. Take a look at this brood. Solid. And what I'm seeing here, this is quite the treat, because last year I didn't see any of this, but I have pollen rimmed with nectar, with honey. This side we have this beautiful brood nest rimmed with pollen, just packed with pollen. So this colony is going to be in terrific shape going into winter, lots of reserves, building out a fantastic looking brood nest here. As the later we get into August, as we get into September, these are the bees that are developing that winter nest, that winter cluster. So a healthy nest right now. We want to promote health in our nest right now. So I'm just doing a quick scan for the queen, and I don't see her. And what I want is I want to sample the young bees. So I shake the bees off into my tub. And I'm going to put my frame back into the nest here. So I'm not too afraid of the bees flying off once I shake them in here. I don't want the old bees anyways, I want the young. The young bees aren't going to fly off on me, and I'm just going to do a quick scan just to make sure I don't sample the queen, because that's defeating the purpose of this whole process. So there's no queen in here. I'll get my mite sampler, and I want to take a couple of scoops of bees, which should represent, roughly 150 to 200 bees. The rest of the bees go back in. And I'm going to put the colony back together, and it's just that quick. So now I have my sample. I'm just going to give them a shake. And you should shake them for about a minute, 2 minutes. Because this is just a field test, right? So we just want to get an idea on what's going on in the yard at this specific time. So we're still mid-August. As you can see, there's a massive brood nest going on down here. I could probably count 8 frames of brood right across. So that leads to a threshold, a summertime threshold of under that 1%. Okay. As we get later on to fall, into September, October, we kind of expand that a little bit, just because the bee mite ratio is a lot different than it is through the summer, and we expand that to 2–2.5%. My threshold later in October used to be 5%, but now with all the virus influence, we've lowered that threshold down to 2.5%. And you just take a glimpse underneath to see if any mites are at the bottom. And I'm not counting any mites, so that's good. So in every yard I'm going to sample roughly 4, 5, or 6 colonies. I have yards of 40. That should give me a pretty good representation on my mite level within the yard. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to throw them all together in one big bucket and do a count and see where everything is on a kind of like an operation level. Meanwhile, Carrie's done all the rest of the work in the yard. No mites. Got a bit of weight in that box. There's some nectar there. They're looking at least 8 frames of brood, eh?
Mostly yes. I've seen a couple where it's 4 frames and then they've already packed the other frames full of nectar. We weren't even looking at top. Right close to the brood nest.
No mites. Our intention is just to find those colonies that are having trouble, to find those colonies that need to be called out. For the most part, these bees are on their own. They kind of look after themselves. We will provide them with a little bit of supplement. Maybe we're wasting our time, I don't know, but it makes us feel good. We're going to make sure they have enough food because we just stripped all their honey off. So we got to make sure that there's enough nectar coming in, and we got to make sure that if there isn't enough nectar coming in, we give them sugars to replace the honey that we took from them. Our job is to control for disease. That's a very important job that we're doing. But for the most part, everything else here, we don't dig down into the nest. We're not digging into the brood nest and manipulating these colonies. We're just kind of looking on the outside and just letting them do what bees do, and that's survive.